It's go time, baby. What's up, everyone? Clown Fiesta Podcast, episode 21 is underway. I'm Blue Jay. I got J and T with me. And holy crap, do we have a lot to talk about this week with Worlds happening and all the off-season rumors, and Bjergsen decided to hang it up. Like, there is so much to talk about. For our live viewers, you'll notice we're starting a little bit early this week. We're starting at 8 p.m. just because we don't know how long this episode's going to go. And well, we didn't want to keep our live viewers up all night, so yeah, we're starting a little bit early. We are going to get into the world stuff a little bit later. Let's start with the North American stuff, and let's start with Bjergsen. Bjergsen announcing his retirement is absolutely insane. A lot of people are very shocked by this. JNT, give me your initial thoughts on Bjergsen deciding to let go.
Yeah, it was definitely a huge shocker. I don't think anybody outside, and even players on TSM we sort of heard from that nobody was expecting this move to even happen. Bjergsen had arguably his best, run in a season, maybe ever since like season 6 or season 7, just
Yeah.
individually in terms of putting the team on his back and, looking like one of the best players in the league again. And then Worlds happens, and then he's hanging it up. And I don't think anybody really saw that coming. Everyone was still expecting TSM to do fairly well. Going back to NA, moving into season 11, TSM, they had just won the split. First time they won a split since season 7. And the first time that they, come back and win it all, Bjergsen retires. So definitely changes the entire landscape of the league. And, it's going to have probably a huge ripple effect for like the next years to come.
It's so crazy to think about the LCS without Bjergsen. Like, he is the face of the LCS. Like, he is. Whether I don't know. It's just I'm so blown away. And you brought up the point that not a lot of people saw this coming. Sure, maybe the world's performance wasn't that great, but like you mentioned, he was still popping off in summer. He was an MVP candidate, probably number 2 in voting, maybe number 3. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure number 2. And he clearly still had it. Like, he's still got it. He's still a very good player. So not a lot of people saw it coming, but another point is, and we will get into our off-season rumors that are mostly based off of Travis Gafford's video. Even Travis himself said that he heard so many things in the offseason, but he did not hear anything about this, and that he was completely blindsided by it as well. So it really goes to show that a lot of people were able to keep this on the down low, or maybe not even that many people. Maybe it was just so few people knew, and that's why everyone's so shocked by it. But yeah, it's so crazy when you think about this guy, his accolades. I don't even know how many MVPs he's got. He's got a bunch of championships. He's been to Worlds 1,000 times. He's an all-star, and like I said, he's the face of the league. And now he's turning over a new page in the book, or whatever people like to say, and he's going to become the head coach of TSM. So he's not totally leaving. He is going to stick around with TSM as the head coach. Just a little bit of a different role for Bjergsen this time around.
Yeah, I think that the move to head coach is actually super interesting. TSM, they've struggled ever since, season 4, season 5 when they had Loco Doco as head coach. They haven't really found like a suitable replacement head coach ever since Loco Doco left. They had Parth, who is now the current general manager of TSM, but was formerly, I guess he was the head coach coming back into this season, but before that, he was the general manager. And then even before that, back in season 6, season 7, he was the head coach for TSM. He, I believe, used to be an analyst on the team when Loco Doco was coaching at the time. But they've sort of had this revolving door of coaches ever since Loco Doco had left with Parth. They had Song, who was the former Immortals coach, I believe, in season 7 when Immortals reached the finals against TSM. Then
Yep.
they had Ziggs come in season 9. And like I just mentioned, in season 10, Parth came back to be the, I don't know who their coach was in the spring, but Parth came back in
Dude,
summer. Like it's kind of like don't even
it's
like
a mess,
remember.
man.
Yeah,
It's a mess because basically the way people look at TSM as far as their coaching staff is concerned, they consider Bjergsen and Doublelift to be the coach regardless of who is actually in the coaching positions. And so even though Bjergsen is going to be the head coach, he kind of was already. Like, he wasn't. Let's be clear about that. He was not, but he sort of was, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's all the rumors were that Doublelift and Bjergsen were running show, and so I think that this is so good as far as their coaching. Of course, you're losing a great player, right? And maybe they can replace him. find a good replacement for him rather. But I do think that the coaching side of Bjergsen will improve now that he doesn't have to focus on his own gameplay and he can focus more holistically on the whole team. So I actually think that as far as a coaching move goes, this is exactly what TSM needs. They need someone that understands the organization, understands all the players on the team, and really has a good mind for the game, which obviously Bjergsen has all of that. And so I think it's safe to say that their coaching issues are gone. However, you leave the void of having lost the best player the LCS has ever had.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how, how TSM sort of functions with what I would say is a more dominant figure in the head coaching role. Because, like you just mentioned, although TSM, you know, written on a piece of paper, this person, whether it was Song, whether it was Zix, whether it was Parth, whether it was Lokodoko, they were the head coach. But Bjergsen has always been the leader of this team. He calls the shots. He does most of the macro. He does most of the macro for the team. I know he's heavily influential in draft in terms of like their practices and game planning. But we'll really have to see sort of how, I guess, TSM's like functionality as an organization changes with Bjergsen coming in. I definitely, I do have a lot of faith in Bjergsen because everyone knows that he's a very intelligent player, and he has been, what I would say is, at a minimum, he's been like a top 5 player, like overall in the entirety of the NALCS. He's the face of the league. He might not have always been the best player. There might have been players that are performing better than him at one time or another, but he was always one of the top players in the league. He obviously has a great mind for the game, and I think he will do a very good job moving into this coaching role with TSM. One of the main problems that I think we find a lot of the time with coaches that are coming into League of Legends, specifically within North America, is they lack experience, whether that's actually head coaching for a team, or there's some sort of analyst that now has become a head coach, or they just don't really have any prior experience. The one thing LS talks about a ton, and one of the structural problems with NA is their lack of coaching. Basically, when you look at NA, up until now, I guess, you could really only say that Reapered and Jat, I guess, were like the only good coaches this league has really ever seen. You could probably throw Zix's name in there for his time at CLG. But other than that, there really hasn't been any like predominant coaching figures that have stuck around in this league. And I think we could be looking at, like some good longevity for another coaching figure in the NALCS with Bjergsen.
Yeah, and another name that I want to throw in there is maybe Coach Kane. He was very well respected, and
Oh yeah, That's
even when things went south for Team Liquid, they decided to keep him anyways. So, anyways, that we'll get to that in a little bit because he might be on the way out. But yeah, I also I think when it comes to the coaches in North America, and I think this is sort of what you were touching on, was there was never 10 teams that had 10 coaches, or pardon me, there was never a coach for each team that was fully respected by the players. And that's something that is often talked about when it comes to coaching in North America, is it needs to be someone who's very well respected. And if you're not playing the game at a high level, it's hard to see it's hard to be told what to do from a coach that doesn't understand the game the way you do. And clearly you're going to get that with Bjergsen. So I think that that's just another I don't know, another positive from having Bjergsen take over the coaching role. I do want to get into what it's going to be like to replace Bjergsen, because there's only been 2 mid laners for in the history of TSM. There's been 2 mid laners. Now there's going to be a third, and filling the shoes. Like, we'll get into rumors. If you have anybody that you think might be filling in, feel free to jump in, JNT. But I have no idea who they're going to get to replace him, and whoever it is probably filling the biggest shoes that you've ever had to fill in the LCS.
Yeah, there hasn't, the last time like a situation like this ever occurred with like a true like, at the time, like legend of the game in North America retired was High back in season 5 when Cloud9 made the move to switch. They changed up their mid laning position with High and put in Jensen, and at the time that was looked at as like, oh my god, you're coming in to replace High, a legendary mid laner who is pretty much like the backbone of the Cloud9 team. And now it's like this times 10 with TSM and Bjergsen. Like you said, honestly, like I haven't even thought about like who like TSM is going to replace. Like a couple names are popping up in my head that we'll get into that a bit later with all the roster rumors and whatnot. But there's a couple people that I can really only think of, but it's going to be very, very interesting to see one, how TSM's roster looks, and two, how Bjergsen functions as the head coach. I'm actually really interested to see, like, I always love watching TSM Legends, especially when they lose. Because it's always just funny. It's always just funny to watch. Like, but now I kind of have like an extra reason to watch it because I'm very interested in seeing one, a bit more of an inside look into, Bjergsen's reasoning and potentially like discussing it with team members, and then going into season 11, what he's going to look like.
Yeah, and I think this is a very exciting but nervous time for TSM fans. If you're a TSM fan, there's a bunch of emotions going on because clearly there's going to be a lot of change to this team, which is exciting because I think clearly after their Worlds performance, you see that this team needs change. But you should also be nervous because the last time we saw TSM make really big changes to their roster, well, they didn't go to Worlds for 2 years, So if TSM fans, this is so interesting for them in good and bad ways, of course. And one other little weird thought that I had today that I wanted to throw in for this discussion about Bjergsen is the Players Association thing, because he is on the Players Association. And it made me wonder, is he allowed to still be on the Players Association if he's no longer a player? And if not, who's going to replace him? Nothing I really want to dive into too much, but just something I thought of, and I thought that would be a good question to ask for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I figure just because of like he's Bjergsen, they'll probably figure out a way to loophole it or weasel him into some sort of
Yeah,
role like within the league.
maybe.
Like he's definitely like an intelligent and smart person that you want to have in the building,
Yeah.
like whether that's on your team or on the Players Association or involved in LCS whatsoever. So I figured that they'll find some sort of role for him in terms
Yeah.
of like the LCS, like that kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts on Bjergsen before we move on?
I guess one other interesting thing that kind of just popped up yesterday. Doublelift. He did a stream on Twitch yesterday for the first time, I think, since like before Worlds, and he was giving his own thoughts on the whole situation with TSM. And one thing that he did mention on his stream was that once he found out the news about Bjergsen and Bjergsen actually told him that he was going to retire, Doublelift really pondered the idea of retiring himself. But Doublelift being Doublelift and wanting to win, obviously is. I mean, we don't know what his future is exactly going to be, whether it's on TSM or whether it's another team. But he did say that he was contemplating retirement, but eventually decided against that and is going to continue to play. But just another interesting fact that this move could have seen like Doublelift retire as well, which would have been even crazier.
Which would have been the other face of the league. Like if it's
Yeah.
not Bjergsen, it's Doublelift, right? And I did watch some of those clips. I was watching his stream a little bit where he was talking about this, and he basically just said like, I'm not going to retire now though. He basically said I decided not to because I still think I'm the best AD carry in the league. So even though I don't think fans think that anymore because he had a really bad year, I don't think fans are against the idea that it's possible he bounces back next year and is once again the best AD carry in the league. All things that are very possible. But yeah, clearly he sees himself as one of the best. And another thing too is that somebody else asked him if he thinks that Bjergsen is the best of all time, and Doublelift says, "Well, I think it's between the two of us." And don't get me wrong, because it is between the two of them. I think had this year not happened, I think it would definitely be a toss up, right? Because Doublelift had an off year and we had just seen him win how many titles in a row? Like
Or
4 or
with Team
5 or
Liquid.
something. I don't. Yeah.
Well, I
So
guess he won more. He won the previous one as well, so I guess technically it was 5 in a row, but one he was on TSM for.
right, but
And
my
if you
point.
don't count like the one that he took off, he won like summer season 6. So in splits that he was playing, you could technically say he won 6 in a row.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But I just thought that was also really interesting too, because and to be fair, he's not exactly wrong. Like as soon as he left TSM, they struggled, and then he started winning all these championships without Bjergsen. So like there is an argument to be had there. We don't need to get too deep into it, but I just thought it was really interesting and really funny that Bjergsen retires. People are asking him questions about Bjergsen, and he goes out of his way to say, "Well, it's either one of us, but neither one of us really care about who the best is," and all. I don't know. It's just funny.
Yeah.
Needless to say, though, yeah, I think you and I both have so much respect for Bjergsen. It really is a shock to see him retire, but I think we're both excited to see what he could do in the head coach position with TSM and see if he's able to turn their fortune around when it comes to the world stage. But we have more to talk about with TSM, but of course, we want to talk about all of the LCS because there is so many off-season rumors floating around, and there's already some moves that are already made. Um, I do want to preface this by saying a lot of the rumors that we're going off of will be from Travis Gafford's video. We'll be sure to add that in the description of the YouTube VOD. If you guys haven't seen it, there's so many rumors in there that we're going to break down, and then we're going to give our thoughts on it as well. What else was I going to say? I'm losing track of thought, but let's just get into them. Honestly, let's get into the stuff that's already happened. Oh yes. The one thing I wanted to say was that none of these rumors are official, because the free agency does not start until November 16th. So even though there's all of these things that are like this is happening, technically no things can happen until November 16th. And that was something I saw Danon say, the GM from Golden Guardians. I'm quoting him here. He said, "We can't do anything except extend." So they can only extend players that they already have under their team or they're under contract until November 16th. Then they can start making trade deals. So just a really big disclaimer here that this is all rumors and this is nothing is actually set in stone, despite anything that's been leaked. But go ahead, J&T, start us off with some of the things that have already been announced.
Yeah, one of the first things that got announced, I think it was actually somewhere like in the middle or maybe like early last week, was that Dardoch will be staying on with Dignitas for 2021. Presumably, we don't know the exact details, but they say 2021, so we're assuming that that's only one more year. And to be honest, I think there was a lot of like mixed reactions with this move. And personally, I actually didn't mind it too much. I do think that Dardoch did enough to earn himself a spot back on this team, whether or not that's going to be LCS or Academy. I do think that keeping him with Dignitas is actually a good idea for Dignitas. Dignitas, they had a lot of, like, they basically had a revolving door of players that were kind of getting subbed in and out in the top, mid, and jungle. We saw their original roster that they went with on week 1 was, I believe, a Viper, Acadian, and Froggen. And they did a bunch of substitutions, subbing out Viper for Lorlo, and Acadian and Dardoch, and Froggen and Phoenix. But at the end of it, they settled on Dardoch for sure being their jungler. And while I do think that he had some good games and some bad games, and he was a bit coin flippy, if they are able to have a full off season, they get like a consistent roster going, I do think that sort of like coin flippiness could go away with better practice and better synergy with his teammates. So I actually think it's a decent move for Dignitas. They're definitely in a rebuilding phase. But keeping Dardoch gives them that little bit of consistency if they are going to do some other bigger moves.
Yeah, no, I don't got much more to add to that. I think that he was good, and I think that Dignitas as a team was better than they showed. I think that their weakness was Viper in the top lane, and I don't think, even though Dardoch did have some lackluster performances, I don't think he was the issue with that team, and so I'm actually okay as well with them keeping him. What else we got on the list for moves that have already happened?
Another one, bit smaller one.
Should we just go through the list of all these? There's a few of them like from like the coaches, right? Should we just
yeah?
List those
So in terms of coaching staff, Rapid Star from Cloud9 is also going to be released along with Reaper. Reaper and Rapid Star were kind of like a tandem in their coaching styles. When they brought in Reaper, they brought in Rapid Star shortly after. So it wasn't really too big a surprise that Rapid Star was going as well. Irene, who was, I don't know if he was the head coach of EG, but I know he was on the main coaching staff because they had Artemis
I think he was
as well.
Head coach.
Okay, him and Artemis
I'm
were like
certain, not 100% though.
Him and Artemis were the two main coaches for Evil Geniuses. Irene was formerly on CLG when Weldon first got brought on with that team, and you could credit CLG's success in that season 9 summer season more to Irene than you can to Weldon. So I do think that he would be a good coach to pick up for any team, whoever.
And Power of Evil.
But well, yeah, and in terms of coaching staff,
I know.
Weldon's a fucking clown, and if that guy somehow gets another job in League of Legends, I'll be very surprised.
Man. I kind of agree. Okay,
Yeah.
carry on.
So I think that's it for coaching. Another kind of notable thing is Smithy's contract player option, I guess team option technically, will not be picked up by Immortals, meaning that Smithy will be a free agent. Very surprising actually to hear, as Immortals did not have a very good season, and you could argue that their best player on that team is Smithy. So not picking up his contract and kind of getting rid of like one of the stronger veteran players in the league is actually very surprising. And I'm interested to see what they do at the jungle position if they're getting rid of him. I swear to God, if they go get some other like old timey else, not old timey, but just like if they just get some other LCS veteran like a Cadian or something like that, like this is a terrible maneuver. This is a terrible move.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by it too, but I'm wondering. I'm just going to look up real quick. Xmithy, he is signed through 2021, of course, so they could have extended him. They could have traded him, maybe. Maybe no one was interested. I don't know. I guess I want to wait and see what their move is. Like, if you're not keeping Xmithy, what's your backup plan? Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of options out there right now.
I
So
don't think
that's why
they're.
I'm more surprised by this, is because it doesn't seem like there's a bunch of junglers that are available. And so they did say also that they want to go into rebuild mode. And so, yeah, if they're going into rebuild mode, it looks like they don't really have anything that's in the pipeline that's going to be a huge signing or anything like that. So I'm not expecting that many great things from Immortals, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. I think they lost their biggest asset going
Yeah.
forward.
Also,
So
before we move on, I do also want to mention. Did you mention Josh Mabry?
no.
Just wanted to mention him. He's the he was like the prep coach, or what was he called? I don't know his official title, but he was the one that was credited for doing their prep for TSM, and he was allowed to explore options as well. So you and I gave him a lot of credit in summer for his preparation in playoffs. I think that he was great, and I'm actually kind of surprised that TSM's letting him go. Maybe because their prep wasn't so great at Worlds. I don't really know, but it seems like he's going to be allowed to explore options and go somewhere else as well. So that's another coaching move that's pretty much done.
Yeah, definitely agree that we both were in agreement that he was a big part of TSM's draft and preparation going into summer playoffs. A bit surprising, honestly, that they're not keeping him around. I assume that they're kind of just handing Bjergsen the reins, and it probably is his decision that you know he's not going to be involved. And if he can get an offer somewhere else, maybe he goes there, or maybe he stays on TSM. We don't really know, but from what we do know of the language that's used in esports in terms of signings and offseason moves, when you release on Twitter saying that your team's allowed you to explore other options, that usually means that you're not going to be back on that team.
Yeah, it's not a good sign for you to
Yeah.
stay where you're at. Okay,
And
what else we got?
and lastly, I think I saved the best for last. Alfari, former Origin top laner, will be again, like we all said, this is rumored, but this sort of seems to be the move that has kind of been most confirmed. Travis Gafford, I believe, originally rumored it, but ESPN, I think, broke like some more official news that Alfari is going to be going to Team Liquid on a 1 million plus per year contract. Obviously means that Impact will no longer be on Team Liquid as his contract was expiring. But Alfari coming to North America, definitely big news. I think you could argue that
Huge.
he was, in terms of all pro voting in the LEC, he was the number one all pro top laner, despite being on, the last placed Origin team.
Yep.
But I think over the last 3 years, uh, Alfari, Wonder, and Bwipo have consistently been the best three top laners in that league. And you look at the level of play that goes on in the LEC, especially in top lane with Bwipo and Wonder, and Alfari is consistently at that level. And in the case of last year, better. Will be a great addition to the NALCS. Another big time upgrade that Team Liquid is making. Things of the past that they always seem to. They have a good player, but if they can upgrade, they will. So big move.
Yeah, honestly, it's a really good sign too, if this will segue into rumors a little bit here, but the rumor was originally that TL was going to get Alfari, but they were also going to get Santorin. And seeing as the first part is true, that makes it more likely that the second part is true. And that could be really huge news for them as well. But yeah, huge signing. It is a multi-year deal, and they're saying that it's worth 7 figures per year. So yeah, he's making at least 1 million per year. Who knows how many years they're going to sign him for? Usually, it's not a long contract in the LCS. It's either going to be 2 or 3 years, my guess. But we'll have to wait and see. And again, nothing can happen until November 16th. So we got a little bit of time to see that one actually become official. Let's get into some of the other rumors, though. Where do you want to start?
Like we mentioned right at the start of this, a lot of this section of our commentary right now is going to be based on a video that was posted on Travis Gafford's channel, I think 2 or 3 days ago, basically outlining a lot of the rumors that he's been hearing, because there have been so many, even though we are still, in the time of the World Championship. But he said that he kind of had to make this video because, all the rumors that he was hearing. First on the docket, we have 100T. Apparently, according to Travis, they're looking to make a switch up at the AD carry position, and that they are interested in both FBI and Johnson. We will get into talk on both FBI and Johnson later, as when we, I guess, move on towards Dignitas and Golden Guardian. But Travis also did mention in the video that 100T, they're kind of hard to get information on, whether or not that's by part of 100 Thieves or the information that he's getting. But not a huge amount of 100T news, just that they are looking to make a change at ADC.
Well, and then the question comes up that where's Cody Sun going? Is I don't think he's retiring. I don't see that happening. So if they're looking to get a new AD carry, clearly they're looking to either deal. Well, I guess I don't know if his contract is expired, but I guess they're probably looking to deal Cody Sun by that logic. If they're looking for an
Probably.
AD carry, clearly, right? Like that. I don't see him being an academy AD carry. That to me doesn't really make sense. I'm looking at the contracts now. He is still signed through 2021. So he's got a year on his contract. So it looks like they're going to look to deal Cody Sun for the last year of his contract.
Okay, moving on. We have Evil Geniuses. Another more AD carry news. The word is that Bang is going to be out, and I think that was a move that I think a lot of people have seen coming, just for the fact that Bang definitely seems to be, I mean, for lack of a better term, a little bit depressed in North America in terms of the vibe that he gives off on his social medias, the way we see him on like face cams in like important playoff games. And it definitely sort of seems that like Bang is the latest Korean import failure that North America's had, specifically ADC.
Yeah, and this wasn't a big surprise. I remember saying this. We've said this on this podcast that we won't be surprised if Bang is no longer with EG next year. It looks like that's probably going to be happening, and they're going to be looking to bid on Johnson as well. It seems like there's going to be a lot of teams bidding on Johnson, and to me, it makes me think whoever doesn't get him might get Cody Sun. I don't
Yeah,
know. There's so
he's
many AD
probably the
carries
plan B.
available. Yeah, and that's something else we've talked about on this podcast. There's so many AD carries available this year. All of the 80, I'll repeat this again just in case you guys haven't watched some of the past episodes, but all of the 80 carries from last split were all signed through 2021. And there's Sneaky that wants to come back, and there's, we said it last week, Arrow wants to come back as well as either a coach or player. So that's not confirmed player, but clearly you have the potential to have at least 12 80 carries for only 10 spots. So there's lots of AD carries that could be floating around and lots of deals done with ADs, seeing as everyone's interested in Johnson or FBI. But moving on, let's go to Immortals. Not too much happening there. They got Origin's old coach Gyoto. That's pretty much the only news out of them, other than the already announced that they're not renewing Xmithy, which is like I don't know. It doesn't seem good for Immortals right now. Not that I expected it to seem good, but it's definitely looking like they're about to lose this offseason. And sometimes that's out of your control, right? Sometimes there's not much you can do about that. If players don't want to sign with your team, hey, tough luck, right? But yeah, not much going on there that looks too good or too promising.
Yeah. Although I do think that Andre Giotto is a good head coach, it definitely does seem that Immortals is kind of just lacking in resources in terms of players that they have on their team, or leverage that they have in terms of getting other players to come to their team, because they were the worst team in the league. They've just now gotten rid of their best asset. So it definitely seems like Immortals is going to be in the rebuilding phase for the next couple of the years. But I do think that they do have a good head coach in place. That's another team that's had a bit of a fiasco at the head coaching position ever since um, Song left at the end of season 7 when they rebranded Optic, and Song had left and they brought in Zabatine. Don't think he did a terrible job by any means. I mean, he did this past year with the whole roster situation and bringing Ica in, but definitely seems like they'll have a little bit more stability at the head coaching position and that he's going to be sort of doing this whole rebuild. But he's a good
Yeah.
coach, so I think he'll hopefully be able to do at least a decent job and get Immortals out of the dumpster.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, like I said before, Immortals is planning to rebuild, so technically everything's right on track with where it's supposed to be. It's just not a really good track. It's a bumpy one. But anyway, Team Liquid. Holy crap, lots of stuff going on with Team Liquid. There's so many possibilities with Team Liquid because so many other contracts expired. We told you guys how they just got Alfari. So that's one piece of the puzzle that's already put in place. And then we also mentioned that with the rumors were that Alfari was going to play with Santorin as jungle. So maybe that's what's happening as well. And the other rumor was that Jensen was considering re-signing if those two players were going to come to the team. So maybe now Jensen's going to stay, but I'm sure that he's exploring his options.
Yeah, I mean, basically what Travis's video said was at the time it was Alfari was a rumor and Santorin was a rumor, and that Jensen was most likely conditional to re-sign if Team Liquid got those two players. So as of right now, Alfari is most likely a done deal, and if they get Santorin, Jensen's probably staying. But it's still not really. There's nothing there's nothing confirmed. So who really knows if Jensen's going to be on Team Liquid? Could be looking like a yes, could be looking like a no, but
Yeah,
definitely could be some movement.
and just to be clear, the contracts that were expiring was Impact, Broxa, Jensen, and then a bunch of coaches. Which also, I don't know if this was in the video or if I heard this on stream. Um, but I have Travis quoting. He thinks that Jet's looking to clear house.
He said that in the
Uh,
video.
okay, so I wasn't sure if that was okay, but anyway, so it looks like they're getting rid of Tyler and Croissant, and then maybe Kane as well. But there was no news on Dodo. So maybe Dodo's staying, but yeah, I mean that's just stuff we'll have to wait and see. Lots of possibility with having so many coaches. I think Tyler and Croissant were allowed to explore options. Is that true or not
Yep,
true?
that was one of the
Okay.
earlier ones. I think that happened last week.
Okay. So as we mentioned before, if that's the case, then there's a good chance that they're moving as well.
And then with the Santorin news in the video, Travis also sort of did mention, he quickly skipped over it, but fairly big news if it's true, that the FlyQuest roster is most likely being blown up, which honestly is, I think, a bit sad. I think there's been a lot of times, not necessarily in North America, but other teams that go to international competition and do better than their expectations, and then since those players have all been performing or they're kind of at their peak performance, they all then split up and go to different teams. We saw this in season 8 with Splice when Splice did season 9 with Splice when Splice did a really good job at the World Championship, beat FPX in one of the group stage games. They made it up to quarterfinals, and then pretty much their entire team boomed. Xerxes left, Humanoid left, Kabe left. I don't know who their support was at the time. Was it North Scaren? Yeah,
Might have
North
been. I
Scaren
can't tell you.
left, and then I don't know who their top laner was, but basically they went to Worlds, did well, and left. FlyQuest did better than expectations at Worlds, and now seems to be booming. Because I do think that this was probably a top 4 team in the LCS moving into 2021 if this was going to be the
Yeah.
same team.
Absolutely, for sure it was, and you got to wonder what mega blowing up means. Like what is this roster mega blowing up? Like does that mean every piece of the puzzle is gone, or is it just the good ones? Like is
Yeah.
Poe now gone? Is Santorin's looking to be gone? Um, and you got to wonder where these players can go. Like who needs a mid laner, right? Lots of teams probably want a mid laner. I know TSM needs one. Who else needs one? Probably 100 Thieves could use one.
Yeah.
Who else? Golden Guardians could maybe use him. There, there's so many possibilities. Dignitas, CLG, C9 said they might not be starting Niski. I mean, we'll talk about that in a bit, but what the hell, man? There's so many places for him to go. The FlyQuest one is really interesting. Another thing with FlyQuest though is that okay, so like you said, they had a very good year, and people were really high on FlyQuest, and for good reason. And so much of the talk was for a team in the LCS to keep fans and to actually grow a fan base, you need regular success. You need to not just have one good year, but you need to have a good year and follow it up with another one and then another one, and that's how you gain fans. And it just seems like with this, it seems impossible for new orgs in the LCS to gain fans or to gain a respectable amount of fans, let's say. So it really is unfortunate that FlyQuest pretty much did too well. You know, it's like they did too good that now they have to lose all their players, and it's just unfortunate that that's the way it's kind of looking. You know?
Yeah, part of growing a fan base in the LCS is more. Yes, it is tied into your team success, but it also is, having notable players on your team, and part of that is like what keeps, it keeps like fan retention in terms of fans coming back to your team potentially despite poor performances, despite not playing at their best. But if you have these notable names and your roster sticking together, that usually builds up a quality fan base. Even though TSM was not up to par the previous 2 years in season 8 and season 9, they still had their marquee players in Bjergsen, and Doublelift
Yeah.
comes back, and these are things that keep an organization afloat in the LCS. It definitely would be a shame if this whole FlyQuest, like it just in a world where this whole FlyQuest roster booms, they then like fall off and they just become bad again, and then who knows, maybe this team is like out of the league in 2 years after such a successful season 10 that they had, making 2 LCS finals, going to Worlds, doing better than expectations, taking a game off top esports in group stage.
Yeah.
It definitely would be sad to see, if there's a world where this team is just out of the league because this whole roster, blow up happens, and then one thing leads to another.
And okay, let's say hypothetically no FlyQuest members return to this team. Where do they go? Is this going to be a team that just struggles to put pieces together and they basically get the scraps of what's left? Like, are they going to be the ones that get like Cody Sun, for example, or Xmithy? Like, it seems like they're probably just going to be left with whatever is left, you know. And that's what really sucks. That like that happens to teams every split, you know. But it does suck to happen for it to happen to a team that had so much success. I don't know where this team goes. I'm not envious of the GM for FlyQuest because I think the GM is going to have a rough off season and not really have too much fun trying to put together some pieces to make a decent roster to try to run back another successful season.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. Like we said, free agency is November 16th, so FlyQuest will definitely be one of the teams to watch in terms of where their players go and who they get. But moving on, back to our TSM talk from the Travis video, Broken Blade and Biofrost are most likely out. So they'll probably be looking for a new top laner and new support. In terms of top lane, they reportedly want Impact or Licorice to fill in at the top lane position. And another notable move, not top laner support related, but TSM, I don't know specifically, I'm trying to remember what Travis said. I don't know if he said they're talking or they're trying to talk, but they're trying to be in discussions with Upset from Origin.
Yeah, but I
So,
think I think he said that it wasn't looking too likely though. Did
okay,
he say
well,
that?
I don't
I think he
remember.
said that. I think he did. But that they were interested and that the implications are interesting because obviously you can't have double lift anymore. But with that said, on Doublelift's stream, it seemed like he was very like people were asking him like, "What do you think it would be like to have Bjergsen as your coach?" And like he was talking about like, "I think it'll be great," and blah blah blah. So to me, it seemed like Doublelift expects to be playing for TSM next year. So that's all really interesting. I don't know how that's going to work out. Maybe he just wants to make it look like he will be. I don't know. That could just totally not be true.
One
But the
thing
TSM stuff is super interesting.
One thing that I could like that would make sense in terms of hearing this rumor is that, like Doublelift did say on stream, like he did consider retiring for about a week, and maybe like he informed TSM of this, and at that time they're trying to talk to Upset, and then Travis heard about that. Like, so we
So
don't exactly
here
know, but if they were operating with the impression that Doublelift could retire, they definitely do need to be looking into other options, and maybe at the time that is what happened.
you made me think of something just now. In the past, Doublelift has said, and I'm paraphrasing, but I mean, I might actually be accidentally quoting him. Um, he has said like he doesn't want to play for shitter teams. I believe. I think that's actually words that he said. I could be paraphrasing, so he may have not said shitter, but he has basically made it very obvious that he doesn't want to play for a FlyQuest or an Immortals or a team that's not TSM Cloud9 TL. Honestly, he only wants to play for the good orgs because he wants to get paid and he wants to have really good teammates. He doesn't want to have to carry subpar LCS pros. And so maybe if he realized that there was no if they were going for upset and that there was no spot for him on TSM, clearly none on TL and clearly none on C9, maybe he would have considered retirement if there was no options on those three teams. That's totally possible as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, I actually think at this point, it's hard to say, but I think at this point, I think Doublelift is going to be sticking around. I think they might go for Licorice, honestly. If I'm TSM, I would rather go for Licorice over Impact all day. Just because of the versatility. We talk about all the time, and I've said this 1,000 times. Impact is a great tank player, but you need more than that. And I'm gonna keep saying that because I just think it's true. There was also rumors that maybe they looked into Haunter again, but I don't think that's all that likely either. I think that they're gonna try to go for Licorice. I thought we said last week that we thought Licorice might go to either CLG or TL. The TL one's off the table now, so that's not happening. And I don't know where else do you think Licorice could go? Golden Guardians is an option.
Yeah, and
Dignitas is maybe an option.
yeah,
Other than
if
that,
I was Licorice, I would definitely the only teams like I would want to go to in terms of like actually contending in playoffs and potentially for the title would be for TSM or Golden Guardians. I even as a C9 fan, I don't want to see Licorice end up on a Dignitas or a CLG or an Immortals. No, I don't want
I
that.
just want to see him on a good team. I don't even care. Like here's the thing. I still think that there is a chance that Dignitas is a good team, whether it's likely or not. Of course, that's arguable. I just want to see him on a good team. I don't want to see him on Immortals or CLG because I'm
I
fairly
just
convinced that those teams are bad.
don't want to see like a someday situation where like he's just in
Yeah,
yellow hell
true.
and it's just so obvious that he's so much better than the players that he's playing with.
Yeah. One other thing I want to say about TSM though is that Reggie tweeted out. I don't know if you saw this tweet. His tweet was just 2021.
I
Maybe I'm
didn't see
reading a
that.
little bit too much into that, but to me, if you just tweet out that that to me tells me they got something in the pipeline that's big. Maybe that was just the Bjergsen thing.
I mean,
I don't. I
potentially.
don't think that the thing is that's not something you tweet out 2021 though. That like if you tweet out just 2021, I think you're excited about something. I don't think you're excited. Yeah, Bjergsen's retiring. Like you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So something tells me that TSM's in the works of something, or they got something ready to announce as soon as November 16th hits. But until then, we just have to wait and remain patient on it.
Yeah, I guess quickly just to breeze by Golden Guardians because we have talked about them a little bit. They are one of the teams that is interested in Licorice. Definitely would be a huge upgrade over Hanser, and I think could push Golden Guardians like over that edge of being a top team in this league. We did mention previously that Hunter T was interested in FBI, and we also did say that FBI is still under contract. So it'd be really hard to see a world where Golden Guardians gets rid of FBI. Who knows? Maybe 100T would give him like a king's ransom for FBI. But if I was Golden Guardians, I'd want to keep FBI on my team. He definitely proved
Yep.
last year that he is a top 2 AD carry in this league and is a future like star, could be superstar, and he's a piece that you need to build around.
I just think it's a mistake. Yeah, like don't get rid of FBI. I know there's a lot of money coming your way. I know there could be pressure from the owners that, the budget's tight, we need money for this, that, the other. I just think this is your chance to be a good team. Just like FlyQuest, like this is your chance to make it to Worlds, and show like you've got a great piece. You've got who was the best 80 carry in the league for summer. You've got him already. Keep him. Keep him and sign someone else in either top or mid. I think that getting Licorice is a great addition to this team. And if not, I think Broken Blade would go really well also.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned how there's a rumor that Niski might not be starting for C9. Well, Niski could be a great addition mid. It's unfortunate that Broken Blade closer and Niski can't all play together. We know that they all have they're all really close from the Turkish league, and they're all really good friends. It's unfortunate that you can't have 3 imports, but
Well,
to
hold
me, I
on.
think that
Hold on.
go
One
ahead.
thing to mention is that FBI is no longer considered an import.
No, but the 3 imports would be Broken Blade, Closer, and Niski.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's 3 imports. Then
Oh,
it's those three that yeah.
I sorry,
Uh,
I didn't realize you were talking about all three of
yeah,
them
that's
on the
okay.
same team.
Yeah. Well, I
I
think
thought you just
that
meant
if you
one or
could,
the other.
yeah, I think if you could, I think that they would want to play together, those three.
Yeah,
And it
probably.
wouldn't surprise me to see either Niski or Broken Blade go over to Golden Guardians, depending on, a lot of situations, of course. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that this team is so good, and they're just one little piece away from being a Worlds contender. Even this year, they could have gone to Worlds. Even this
Yeah.
year, they're pretty much one win away. Not exactly. If they would have beat TSM, I thought that they would have beaten Cloud9 right after. So to me, so close. Don't blow it up. Don't sell out. Stay the course. I think that this team is great. I'm really excited to see what they do, and I'll be way less excited if they get rid of FBI. Please don't freaking do that. Okay.
Yep. The other 80 carry to talk about is Dignitas Johnson. Apparently, the rumors are that he's going to be up. You know, he's going to be sold at the highest bidder, basically.
I'm tilted.
Which, he's kind of like, obviously Johnson didn't really get to show his stuff as much as FBI did because they didn't make playoffs or they weren't in a best of 5 series. But if you were watching Dignitas games, you should have seen that this guy is definitely one of the best 80 carries in the league. Him and Aframu were actually absolutely smurfing
They were
the
great.
majority of bot lanes in this season. I would argue that the only bot lanes that actually performed better than Aframu and Johnson were the C9 bot lane, the Team Liquid bot lane, and the Golden Guardians bot lane. I think they were right up there in terms of like all pro voting levels. I had Johnson pegged as the third best ADC in terms of like when I did my mock all pro voting, and I had Aframu as a close fourth. But again, like you just mentioned, like this is the kind of player that you don't want to get rid of. This is the kind of player that you build your team around. And yes, there's the thought that if we sell this guy, that's a boatload of money that we can use to spend on other players to maybe make upgrades across the team. But I think if you look at this Dignitas roster, they have actually a lot of really good pieces that I think, I don't like this phrase, but you got to trust the process a little bit here. Like
Yes,
Lore, like
absolutely.
yeah, they played Lorlo for 4 games. He looked significantly better than Viper. He went 3-1 in the 4 games that they started with Dignitas. For whatever reason, they subbed Viper back in. They looked like absolute dog shit, and Viper was inting lanes, starting off 0-2 at 5 minutes, and was the primary reason that Dignitas was losing games. They have Dardoch, who I think, with a full offseason and with a consistent roster, can perform better, and already was playing at a decent level. Obviously, I think the biggest change needs to be mid lane. They need to bring somebody else to play mid lane for this team. I don't think Phoenix is it. I don't think Froggen is it. I think Froggen is sort of on
Power
his...
of evil,
Yeah,
man. I think that that's who you should go after.
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there. I just think
That's
that there
great.
there are mid laners that are available. If the rumor is true that FlyQuest is blowing up, I think that means Power of Evil is available, and you got to go for this guy. And I think Dignitas could be a good team. And I think what's so disappointing about the fact that they're selling Johnson is who they're replacing him with. And don't get me wrong. So the rumor is that Sneaky will be playing for Dignitas, and I'm a huge Sneaky fan. I love him. I think it's great that he's coming back into the league, but I think it's an absolute mistake to get rid of a guy who just had a great rookie year and has obviously got room to get better. I think that they're going to really regret this move for a long time, and I think that they're going to pay for, like, Sneaky's a big risk, man, a very big risk. He took a whole year off, and I'm not saying Sneaky's just washed because he took a year off. What I am saying is you don't know what you're going to get with Sneaky anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you know that if you keep Johnson, you've got a very solid piece that you could build on. And yeah, again, I think this team should be going after a mid laner, and I think that there will be a few available. And it just disappoints me to hear that they're looking to sell. It's so strange. Um, the other rumor around this team is that Haunter might go if Golden Guardians get Licorice. So even if you had Haunter in the top lane, that to me is a very clear upgrade over Viper. Uh, it just feels Like Dignitas is so close, and they're gonna let go and kind of sell out to get sneaky. And I just think that that is not worth the risk. I don't think that the reward is there.
Yeah, the thing, especially this year, what I saw from a lot of the bottom tier LCS teams, they seem to have this mentality that you can plug and play um X player and that will help their issues. And if it's just a matter of, okay, we find the right roster and then our roster is going to do well, as opposed to getting some consistency in the building with their roster. Again, I don't like saying this, but trusting the process and building for the future. Like when you're the 100T, you're the Dignitases, you're the CLGs, you're the Immortals of the league. You cannot be focused on, yes, maybe getting to playoffs you can focus on. You want to try to hit 5th or 6th seed and make it to playoffs, that's something to focus on. But once you recognize that that is no longer an option, like when you looked at Dignitas, they started out the season, was it 0-8? They
Yeah.
lost their first 8 games of the season. And at that point, it's just a matter of finding, hey, what are the pieces on this team that we are going to use for the future? And like I said, it's very surprising to me they didn't continue to play Lorlo. I think he should start for this team next year. They seem to re-sign Dardoch, which I think was a good move. Mid lane should be a worry point with this team, and they do need to find somebody. But Aframu and Johnson were one of the best bot lanes in the league, and like you just said, I think they're one piece away from potentially being a playoff team. And
Yeah.
I don't understand this mindset of these bottom tier teams that are constantly just subbing players in and out and just, what's the saying? You just like throw it at the wall and see what sticks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like just build on the young players that you have and develop for the future. Because if you're not one of these top teams spending a lot on a consistent basis for players, you need to be building through the academy system, through finding young rookie talent. And they've done that with Johnson. They seemingly have done that with Lorlo, finding like getting sort of back into his former season 6, season 7 version of Lorlo when he was on Team Liquid. But I think they're, like you just said, I think they're one piece away, and it would be a shame to see them fuck it all up by getting rid of Johnson.
Yeah, it's an unnecessary risk, is the way I would look at it. But the other thing that I need to say about this move is you just traded for Johnson last year, right? So you just traded for him. What would have been the outcome that you're looking for? Like, what more could he have done to prove himself that he's a good AD carry and that he can get better in this league? I think that with the trade to get him last year, this scenario, what you got from him is exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know what else could you have wanted. So now that you got exactly what you wanted, you're gonna give that away? Like what?
Yeah, like it's funny, like you just said, like they got what they wanted. Like this was like best. I think like
This best case
what
scenario.
because what happened with Dignitas was best case scenario. They got rid of Vulcan for a bunch of money. Then they used that to sign Hooney, XD. We don't need to get back into that. But
XD.
like they got rid of Vulcan. At the time, you could consider top 2 support in the league. Probably in my mind, still is behind Core JJ. But you got rid of like the second best support in the league for a young, potentially hella pop off ADC in Johnson, which you got, and then you bring in Aframu, who most people considered was dead in the water and spammed his fire to make Aframu retire, and he ended up being one of the better supports in the league, and
He had a great
he
season.
had a great season. Like anybody who says that Aframu had a bad season wasn't watching Dignitas games, or it was
I
just
think I
still.
had him number 2 in All Pro. For me, I think I put him number 2. I know I had him in my top 3 for sure. He had such a good split, and he was on such a bad team that like it wasn't recognized, and I never understood that because people were all quick to recognize Someday for being so good on a bad team. I thought Aframu was no different. I thought he was great.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just
Ugh.
things have gone in terms of finding players that actually have like good value. It went as good. It went as they got the best outcome by the end of the season. And
And
if they fail to recognize that by getting rid of Johnson, there's a problem with the coaching and management of Dignitas.
yeah, and with all that bad and all that disappointing stuff for us, I will say it is super exciting to see Sneaky coming back. If that's the case, if this is true, I want to see what a Sneaky and Afromu bot lane looks like. I think that'll be awesome to watch. Um, yeah, I've made my point though. I just think that it would be better to keep Johnson.
Yep.
But hey, Sneaky's coming back. That's exciting, and so there is some good that comes out of this.
Yeah, just last two quick ones to round it out. For CLG, apparently, you know, if Golden Guardians finds a replacement top laner, whether that be like maybe Licorice or Impact or something like that, Haunter could be on his way to CLG. Also, Deftly could be on his way to CLG if EG is to either acquire Johnson or get another ADC. Deftly, who's I think he's like a bottom tier LCS level AD
Yeah.
carry, but there's a small chance he has some upside. There was flashes of it when he did play. He did start a couple games for Cloud9, and he did start a couple games for Golden Guardians. There was something there. He'll have to prove it himself, whether he's on an LCS or Academy team, but not too much from the CLG camp. Lastly, Cloud9. Obviously, it was announced about a month ago that C9 was not going to be making any roster changes. That proved to not be true after the OPL changes. Budge is promoted to top lane. They're getting rid of Licorice. And now apparently Niski is not guaranteed to start in mid lane for Cloud9, which is another sort of huge bomb because all the players on C9 individually are very, very good. Licorice, Blabber, Niski's Van Vulcan, and they're getting rid of two of the main pieces that they play around with if Niski's to be gone. Niski was probably credited a lot for his success with Blabber and the way that they work together mid jungle, and Niski sort of playing the push and roam style and playing exclusively around Blabber, playing with him in the early game, and that was what C9 really succeeded with in the spring and early summer split.
I'm wondering. Oh, sorry, I had you. Maybe I cut you off there. Maybe there
No,
was a
I'm
little bit of
done.
lag. I just wonder who the heck's gonna replace. Like, what do they got planned? And the thing is, it's Cloud9, right? You know they have something planned. You just don't know what it is. Um, I will throw out this. This was another thing that Travis threw out the idea. To be clear, this was not a rumor. This was just a crazy theory or something. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he said something along the lines of a crazy theory that um, the rumor is that Perks wants to play mid again. So there's that. If Perks is to go mid, then G2 has to let go of him. Either let go of him or let go of Cap. And the only team that he could go to that he would probably want to go to would be Fnatic. But if you're G2, you're not going to want to let go of a mid laner. You're not going to let him go to the only team that's been able to challenge you over the last few years that you've been just rolling the league. Therefore, he would have to go to a North American team if he wants to go to Worlds, is the argument that's often made. If you're not on Fnatic, you're not on G2, your odds of doing something good at Worlds is just not there. And so maybe Perks were to go to North America. That's still a big if. But where would he go? The rumor is that maybe he would go to Cloud9. Maybe you would see C9 Perks. However, this idea that Travis threw out
Cracked.
was before BJERGSEN retired. That idea was before the news of BJERGSEN broke, because I was in Travis's chat when the news broke, and then it was, oh, well, maybe he could be TSM Perks as well. And this is just theory. This is not rumored, just to be clear. But that's something that's really interesting to hear, that Perks could or maybe would want to maybe go to North America. That idea itself, even if it is a very low chance of happening, is just a crazy thought altogether.
Yeah, one thing I think it's pretty hilarious, but just like the sort of like EU culture that they have against North America, specifically with TSM, like all the EU players just meme on TSM so hard. Like Alvari was literally memeing NA at Worlds this year, and now is coming to NA to play for Team Liquid. It just seems to happen all the time, where like they're like EU, like their nature is just to be cocky and memey on Twitter, like flame the fuck out of NA, and then come to NA for the paycheck. Or I mean, in his mind, he's coming to win, but he's coming for the paycheck.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's
But
a paycheck there.
like just specifically with TSM, it'd be really hilarious to see a player like Perks to go to TSM, just for the fact that EU players meme on NA and specifically TSM so much.
Honestly, yeah. If it's not Niski starting, who do you think would be going in that spot if it's not Perks?
Yeah, well, what at least with C9, I think the whole reason, like we already mentioned this, but the whole reason for this huge C9 roster shakeup, or seeming to be roster shakeup, was because of the OPL changes and OPL players being considered, they're not considered as an import slot. And this puts C9 in a really, really good position, as they have now an import slot if they were to get rid of Niski and potentially want to find another mid laner. And then who knows, like that could lead to like other moves potentially, but they have a free import slot if they were to get rid of Niski, as Niski is an import. But like you said, far-fetched, but C9 perks maybe. If the whole Team Liquid,
Possible.
if Jensen with Team Liquid doesn't fully work out, you could maybe see Jensen return to C9. You could see Power of Evil C9. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I think C9 does have a lot of options. Even like, Nemesis is could be leaving Fnatic. That was news that kind of just came up today, was that Fnatic is probably trying to replace Nemesis. C9 Nemesis wouldn't be a bad option. I think C9 is in a really good position. One, with having an import slot, and two, there actually being a lot of good mid lane players available right now.
Do you think that there's the potential that it's something that Cloud9 has in their back pocket, that they have Sven on the team who used to play with G2? Do you think there's any connection there?
Oh, maybe. I didn't really consider that, but
That could be some pull, That's something
maybe.
that's possible as well. And the other thing is, we quickly just went over CLG real quick, but I did want to say something about them. It's just that you and I said,
We don't need to talk
and we're
about
not the only ones.
CLG.
We're not the only ones that have said this about CLG, but everyone has said they need to do something, make a splash for people to change their opinion about this org. Um, I don't think that Hanser or Deathly is anything to
Oh
get
yeah.
all that excited about,
Nope.
unfortunately. And so, with
CLG is
that,
bad.
it
Move on.
seems like we don't know yet. Maybe they have something planned. Maybe Tafo Kintz, what's his name? Tafo Kintz, I think the GM.
I don't know.
Maybe he's got something up his sleeve. I don't know. But yeah, if you're a CLG fan, it's not looking good. It's looking to be more of the same. And I don't know. To me, I think you need to replace the GM and have a whole new identity with this team. But who knows? Maybe you can pull a rabbit out of his hat. With all of those rumors now, that's pretty much all of the rumors, right?
I think so.
With all of those, who do you think is going to win and lose the offseason? Do you have any? I mean, the obvious loss of the offseason has to be FlyQuest, TL, and Immortals, right? Is there anybody else that you think is going to lose this
Wait,
offseason?
why Team Liquid?
Did I say Team Liquid? That's not what I
Yeah.
meant to say.
Oh,
Okay, FlyQuest, CLG, Immortals.
okay. Yeah, that makes
Okay,
more
that's what I
sense.
meant to say.
Okay.
And, yeah, that I didn't mean to say Team Liquid. And then is there any other? Oh yeah, and then Dignitas, obviously, for losing Johnson. We think.
Well,
And
just to keep the meme going, C9 always loses the off season. So
true, it's guaranteed that Cloud9 is going to lose the offseason.
okay.
That's a no doubt.
Yeah.
Anybody else you think?
Um. So I definitely agree with FlyQuest. I do think that just I definitely agree with the point that I think they're probably just going to be left with the table scraps in terms of what players they're going to be able to get. I do hope that FlyQuest is maybe able to keep at least some of their players. Like, I think even if they're able to keep their bot lane, I think Wild Turtle and Ignar, they had a very good season. And I think Turtle, in my mind, has played much better than expectations, and potentially, along with Aframu, has sort of maybe revitalized his career with this season that he's just had. So if maybe FlyQuest is able to hang on to their bot lane plus solo, but this team will be in a really rough spot if both Santorin and Power of Evil end up on different teams. So definitely agree with the FlyQuest take there. Definitely agree with Immortals. It's not even like they're losing the offseason. It's just like they're just there. Like there's
Yeah.
not much that they can do. They don't have any. They have no chips at the
Loss by
bargaining table.
default.
Yeah,
It's like a loss by default.
yeah,
And then the obvious winner has to be TL so far. If the rumors are true, it
yeah.
seems like TL has definitely done something to improve, and that they'll be in really good hands. TSM, I think they still can win the offseason despite losing BJERGSEN. I really do think they can.
Okay,
We'll have to wait and see who they get mid. I want to throw out the idea of TSM Ignar, maybe. I think that's
maybe.
something that's possible. They do have the import slots, right? If another big if, but if they go the licorice route and they keep Spica and they keep double lift, you have two import slots for mid and support. So mm, wouldn't that be interesting if the FlyQuest mid bot or mid support just go right over to TSM? That is a possibility as well.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very imperative. Like my opinion of TSM um, in terms of winning or losing the offseason is very much focused on the players that they sign. Because while we did talk
Well,
about
yeah.
this, and but no, just while I do think that Bjergsen will be a good head coach, I don't think that it'll work well at the start. I think there will
Interesting.
be
Why?
hiccups. Well,
Just because he's new, you
he's
mean?
a
Yeah,
new
just
player
because
going into a new
okay,
role.
I can hear that. Yeah, I can
It's
get behind
it's
that. It's
it's this
possible.
is like in sort of like this is like the first of its kind where a player has instantly retired and then instantly been promoted to head coach. And while I do think Bjergsen is a worthy person to just be the first one to do that and just make that jump directly from player to head coach of a team, because he basically was like the head coach of TSM for the number of years. But I don't know. I just don't think that it'll all just work out like magic right at the start. Like there's going to be struggles with this team. We have mentioned before that TSM has done a bad job in the past with integrating new players. There was that whole debacle with bringing in Sven Mithi and Mike Young. It didn't work. Mike Young was out of the team within half a split, or a split to half a split. Mithi was out of the team a year after, and TSM was kind of like hanging on by like a thread with Bjergsen in the mid lane, keeping the team together and keeping them somewhat like relevant in terms of the standings at that time. And, they're going to be in the same sort of situation here. They're losing Bjergsen, their most important player. They're going to have to redo the entire way that this team thinks about macro and, how the shot calling goes in game, because, Bjergsen does the majority of it. And from what we've heard in the past is that Doublelift has sort of assumed a lesser role of that after moving to Team Liquid and coming back on TSM, and that more of it has gone back to Bjergsen. So they're going to have to redo the whole way that this team works. And we've seen in the past when TSM does make these big moves where they do bring in new players, it's failed. So
Yeah,
if
it's
like
true.
if TSM okay, in the world, like if TSM were to get Licorice, Power of Evil, and Ignar, then they definitely didn't lose the offseason because just of the caliber of players that they've gotten. But like I'm just trying to think of like some like mediocre roster that they could get. Like let's say if it was Impact, who's like a mediocre mid laner that could be up for grabs. I don't know.
None are coming to mind.
Insert mediocre mid laner and insert like somewhat random support. Like I think they would have lost the offseason because
Yeah,
in terms of North America, they would have downgraded probably at top lane. They could have downgraded. They definitely downgraded at mid lane, and maybe they side grade / upgrade at support. But you're losing your most important piece in your team, and you're going to have to restructure the entire way that this team functions. And there's going to be struggles. I'd be very surprised if TSM was a top team in this league start of next spring. And, I think if everything works
interesting.
well, then it'll happen by summer. But don't expect TSM to come swinging out of the gates in summer and defending this LCS title, in my view.
Interesting. I actually think the opposite. I actually think TSM is going to come out swinging. I think that the transition to coach will be just fine for the reasons I mentioned before. I think Bjergsen has basically been the coach with the team before, and I don't think that that will be a difficult transition. He's known as being this really really hard worker and perfectionist, and I don't think that I think anyways. I just think that he'll fill in really well. But again, this is uncharted water, so we don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah, I like that you bring up the point that he could struggle taking on a new role, because it is very much possible for anyone taking on any new role, right? So
yeah,
it is
just
possible.
because while yes, Bjergsen was basically the head coach of TSM, he had like Bjergsen's not gonna have a headset on when TSM is playing the game. He can't talk
Yeah,
to the team. So either
true.
Doublelift assumes that role, and we've heard from Doublelift in the past he doesn't play as well when he is
That's a good
focusing
point.
on more of the team play, and he can't focus solely on himself. Like that's happened. He said that in the past.
Yep, that is
And
true.
like, man, in League of Legends, when the draft is over, the coaches shake hands and get in the fucking back room, and it's up to the players at that point. So they're gonna need some solid pieces in place, and they're gonna need to right the ship right away, basically, if they expect to contend in the spring split.
Yeah, no, it'll be so fun. I can't wait for the next wave of rumors to be released, if there is a next
Yeah,
wave. I
or
think
just
it'll
off
be really
season to
sweet.
start.
And I honestly, the other one last thing that I did want to throw out before we move on, was that even when Doublelift was struggling with Team Liquid in spring, uh, they said that like Doublelift and Broxa both said that they enjoyed playing together. And so it wouldn't surprise me if somehow Broxa, if Double Lift were to go to another team, that's if Double Lift were to go somewhere else. Maybe he reunites with Broxa on a different team, which I thought was possible. Perhaps unlikely, but possible. And Broxa has said that he's open to going to North America or Europe. So
Okay, here's
even though
the
even though Brox is being replaced on Team Liquid, I don't want people to count out Broxa from being in North America because I still think it is a possibility.
okay, here's how FlyQuest doesn't lose the off season.
Okay,
They
go
get
for it.
they
Sell me.
get they get Impact, Broxa, Power of Evil. They keep Power of Evil, Double Lift, and Ignar.
The thing is, I would love
Money,
that, but the issue there,
money.
well, there's a couple issues. One is money. Two, the rumor is that this roster is blowing up big time, and
Well,
so I
I
don't think that they're keeping Poe and Ignar.
mean that's how that
Um,
I'm just saying that's how they don't lose the off season.
yeah, it is possible. Let's say that. But yeah, we've gone on for plenty long about the offseason rumors as expected. We did plan to, but
Yep.
let's get on to world stuff now because well, semis are already done and we got finals approaching really quick. I can't believe Worlds is almost over. It's actually crazy. Saturday, last series, Saturday, 6 a.m. EST, 3 a.m. PST. But before we get on to the finals preview, let's talk about semis. What were your thoughts about semis? We'll start with Damwon and G2.
Yeah, the Damwon G2 series just really proved that Damwon is, with Suning playing so well, but it just proved that Damwon is the best team at this tournament.
Yeah, I
They
think it did as
It
well.
was a 3-1, but like looking at the series, like G2 just got smashed. Like they got smashed from start to finish. Like Ghost and Barrel played a really really good game. They kind of just like switched up their entire play style in terms of playing super aggressive, heavy early game focused bot side gameplay for Damwon. They put a lot of the initiative in the game plan for Ghost and Barrel. Barrel absolutely smashed Mickey the entire series in terms of laning phase. It just wasn't even close, specifically in the bot lane. Damwon was doing a really great job of punishing G2's over aggressiveness in the early game. And I believe it was games 1 and games 3. We saw G2 go for a lot of early skirmishes in the enemy jungle, looking for like a lot of 2 versus 1s and trying to pick off the enemy jungler through invades. But we'd see heavy, collapses from Damwon after getting their mid and bot lanes pushed out, and the 2v1s quickly turning into 4v2s in favor of Damwon. And sure, G2 might get the first kill, but they lose 2 in return, and then we can see that play happen again in the top side. But Damwon just did a really good job of just stifling G2's early game plays through early collapses, and it just, although it was 3-1, it wasn't close.
Yeah, it did feel like Damwon was just outclassing them, and I'll tell you, it was game one where I knew that Damwon was going to win this series. I know G2 picked up game two, they took game two, but as soon as I saw Caps, he was playing Silas, he stole the TF ulti, and just for people that don't know, G2's macro has been great. Like that's where this team is really good is their macro, and they go to make a TF ulti. Of course, it was Silas that stole it, but he goes to make a TF roam bot and they get nothing out of it and they end up giving up all their plates mid and it's like wow, G2 just got out macroed hard. It seemed like Damwon was totally ready for G2 to try to make the play. They were able to stifle it and then make and get an advantage for themselves, despite the fact that it's G2 that was making the proactive play. And as soon as I saw that, as soon as I saw G2 get out macroed that hard, they lost their whole mid lane or tier one. I was like, this is a big uh-oh. And not only that, the game pace was a lot slower than we're used to seeing at a G2. And we talked a lot about whoever gets to play the pace at or whoever gets to play the game at their pace is going to be the one to take this series. And this series was not a fiesta. It was not a very quick paced series. It was about average. And I think that's exactly what
Minus the
Damwon
fourth
wanted to
game.
do. They slowed down. Yeah, of course. They managed to slow down G2 and stop them from taking advantages with all their early proactive plays. And yeah, that's something that not a lot of teams in the world can do. And Damwon made it look easy.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you knew that this was series was in you knew that G2 was in deep shit right off the start of the series.
yeah, and in game two, honestly, like that was just a straight up like they just lost on draft with the Fiora pick. I think Damwon in their heads probably knew that they had this series in the bag, and Nuguri just probably wanted to flex on them a little bit by picking Fiora. I definitely don't think we'll ever see Nuguri play Fiora in the finals, but
So here, hold
I
on.
do think that like that second game was purely draft diff in my opinion.
Here's what I have to say about the Fiora, because the Fiora actually was winning lane as far as CS and pressure. But what did happen is that it looked like this is the other weird thing is that G2 won this game, not so much with their proactive plays. It seemed like whenever they were getting advantages, it was because Damwon was getting desperate to make a play and they were forcing plays that just couldn't work. So it was like it wasn't so much G2 winning, it was more Damwon losing.
Yeah,
And I
but
know that it's not totally fair to say, but that's the feels that I got from this game.
yeah, no,
And
like you said, like it was just hard for Damwon to do anything, and I just want to like go back to like like if you just look at the draft, like they have Fiora, Graves, Silas, Set, four basically melee champions that are the primary damage dealers of this team comp, into Twisted Fate, Ezreal, and Kindred. And then you have a Leona and Camille for peeling. I honestly think like it was a straight draft diff. It was really hard for Damwon to actually make anything happen in that game, and it was pretty much all like residing on like the split push. And once, like, yes, I do agree that Nuguri's Fiora pick was actually doing decently in the
yeah.
like in this spot, but he just wasn't able to do much in an extended side lane versus Camille Kindred, who were just consistently able to just like run him down in the empty lane.
Yeah, you saw Nuguri get really desperate to try to flank, and like he didn't
Yeah.
have enough items to be flanking with, and he ended 0-7-1 in that game.
Yeah,
Like it was
like
not a really good
he
score
got he got
line.
two items pretty fast in the game,
Very
just by
fast,
splitting,
man.
and then his
Yeah,
third item took like 20 minutes for him to buy it.
yeah.
And or not like 20 minutes, like 15 minutes or something. Like it just felt like he was sitting on like Trinity Force Hydra with like multiple longswords for a long time.
Yeah, and honestly, the desperation was not just on the side of Damwon too. In game three, we saw G2 start to get very desperate. I want to recall for people listening the Akali flanks that Caps was trying to pull off,
Yeah,
like where he's just sitting in brushes. And by the way, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. When you're behind, you need to make something happen. You need to go for that low percentage play, because that low percentage play is the only thing you got left to get a win. So I didn't mind it, but it did look like the result made it look so bad when
yeah.
like he's sitting in that brush forever and then just ends up dying. I
Hmm.
don't mind the play. I don't mind going for something like that. It looked like he was trolling a lot more than he actually was, but you could just see the desperation, and when you have G2 being that desperate, it's just not gonna equal too many good things. And then of course, game four. Guys, game four was 19 minutes. That was a
Yeah.
very quick game. That's the quickest game that we've ever seen at Worlds, right? That was the fastest game in Worlds history.
Yep.
They got absolutely stomped.
D2 holds record for the fast, like they have the fastest win at MSI, and then they have fastest loss at
Yeah,
Worlds.
fastest series, right?
Well,
Is it fastest
and game, because
series or one?
I believe they
Okay,
also
both.
ended a game at MSI in 18 or 19 minutes.
Oof, and that was against TL, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Where they
yeah.
both were the whole thing was against TL. Yeah,
Yep.
so they got the best and the worst, which is like that is so G2 by the way. To have both of those records, like that is a G2 thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, game 4, it honestly just felt like a solo queue game.
Yeah.
Uh they were getting sieged on mid with Herald, and they were losing, and it was like it felt like a bronze solo queue game where you got one player going in one at a time trying to clear the wave and stop the siege and just dying. And like it felt like as soon as one guy would go in, he would die, and then Damwon would be like, "Oh, I guess we can take another turret.
And
Oh, I
then
guess
the
we can
next
take
guy
another
would go
turret.
in and die.
Oh, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
we're on inhib now." They got their Kindred ulting the Herald. Like,
Yeah, because then they dropped the Herald at like mid tier 2 after
yes,
they had just, I think, killed two people.
I
And
think they
then
killed one Nexus turret. I think with it, I think
no,
they
yeah,
killed
yeah,
one.
like that's what I mean. Like
It went
they
forever.
dropped it. They dropped it at tier 2. Got they after they just want to fight. Then it's
Uh,
charging onto the inhib tower, into which they pick off another person while people are going to heal from that fight. They kill the inhib, and then they kill another person while the team goes back to heal again. and then like they're just on Nexus turrets, and the game is just over.
Yeah. And the real reason why Damwon was able to get all these advantages in all of the games for me was Scuttle Prio. They had Prio in all of their lanes. They're winning all of their lanes all the time. And Canyon is just good. Let's just put that out there. He's good.
Yeah.
He's there all the time. He's setting up every objective, and they're always ready to make sure that if a fight breaks, that it's in their favor, that they have the better position. And that's just how they won over and over again. So yeah, nothing more for me to say from this series other than Damwon was clearly the better team.
Yeah, Damwon pretty much outclassed them in every role except for mid. I kind of had it like the only reason I think Caps was doing actually a really fine job against Showmaker and in including in some bad matchups for Caps.
I even thought Showmaker outclassed him as well.
Oh yeah, but not by much in my opinion at least. I think
Are we talking about in laning phase or the games altogether?
just in laning phase really.
Okay, in laning phase I could see it. The games
Yeah.
altogether, Showmaker was for sure
Oh yeah,
outclassing
yeah.
him.
No, I just and like
Do you remember the
that's
bot
what I
lane
mean
play?
though. Like you could see it in laning phase that their bot lane was getting outclassed. Wonder was getting outclassed by Nuguri. Canyon was just everywhere doing everything, and Caps is just chilling there like, guys, we're just losing everywhere else, and I'm just chilling here going even in farm. And it's
Yeah.
just like then Beryl like roams up, kills Caps twice in that Akali game or something like that, or and then in one of the Silas
Barrel's roaming
games,
is great.
yeah, he did a really good job.
I forgot to mention the outplay bot lane. I think it was in game 2, even though they lost, the Showmaker play on Silas where he steals the Kindred ulti. Do you remember what play I'm talking about?
I don't think so, but
It's in game 2. I can't
it was
remember what time
probably a
it is. I
good
wish I
play
could
because it
remember.
was
It was a
Damwon.
very nice play. Definitely worth going to watch again, but I can't remember the timestamp. Regardless, anything else, or do you want to move on to Suning TES?
Oh, I guess we can move on.
Yeah, this was another series that wasn't all that close either. Again, it was another 3-1 series, but I think we can both agree that this also felt like a 3-0. Like Suning just seemed to be the better team.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, sure, the scoreline is 3-1, but it was very obvious that Suning was the better team, and that's what we mean by saying it was a 3-0. Like, the scoreline might have been 3-1, but the series didn't feel close at all. It always just felt like Suning was going to win after like the first 2.5 games, basically.
I don't even remember what game did TES win. Which one was it?
I believe it was game 2.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
I want to talk about Jackie Love a little bit because
He's running it
I
down.
think that he had actually a very good game 1, but other than that, like he had a pretty disappointing Worlds appearance, I would say altogether. Um, Started off great in groups, but I mean he wasn't in the hardest group for TES anyways. Like they would have no problem beating any of the teams in their group. So even though he had a good start, I felt like his performance got worse as time went on, and I was a little bit disappointed with his Ezreal over the full Worlds performance. Um,
Yeah,
Again, his game 1 was great, but they also had the Jin Pantheon matchup into the Ezreal Rakan, and like Jin Pantheon is going to smash that lane. Like it's very, very solid. But then once they didn't have that matchup, they seemed to struggle the rest of the series.
yeah, it was kind of surprising for me to see their priority on Senna just like kind of fall off a cliff. Senna
Which is
was
what we saw early in the Worlds tournament. Honestly, we
yeah,
saw
like Senna was
lots of Senna.
Jackie Love was making Senna look like the best ADC in the game, and it was kind of like it was just giving me the opinion that this champion is just going to rise in priority all across Worlds because of the way that Jackie Love is playing it, similar to what Huang Feng did on Jin in the quarterfinals. Like, and even in week 2, like Jin was seeing some decent play. But with Huang Feng just like completely smurfing on kids in the quarterfinals with Jin, I was figuring that champion was going to go high up in priority, which it did, and continue to see a lot more play in the quarterfinals. I know Perks played 3 games of Jin against Gen G, but yeah, their center priority kind of just went like out the window, and that was one thing that was really surprising to me. Like you said, we saw a lot of Jackie Love Ezreal in this knockout stage of Worlds, and he was limit testing, let's say.
Yeah, and you know what though? Honestly, for this series specifically, I actually didn't think Huan Feng had that great of a series either. Not that he was. I don't think he was as bad as Jackie Love, but the only ways that Top was ever able to get advantages was through bot lane. Like it it felt like the Suning bot lane didn't know how to play weak side and to be respectful of when they didn't have their jungler around or when SOFM was on top side of the map getting top lane advantages. Um, a little bit disappointed to see them die as much as they were dying. However, it just didn't matter because of the advantages that they were getting mid, jungle, and top. But still something that they should be worried about going into the finals. Honestly, I think Huan Feng was so good in quarters, and I thought him and Sword Art were a little bit lackluster in semis, and I think they're going to need to bounce back.
Yeah, the thing that was most surprising for me, at least, was just how Bin and SOFM looked so much better than 369 and Karsa in terms of just their coordination with the two of them. Bin just outplayed 369 in every way
Dude,
possible.
oh my God. His Wukong was so good. He was always able, and that's something that I think you could chalk up to draft a little bit, but the Wukong was always able to find Jin. I think that was game one.
Yeah.
Jackie Love was
Hmm.
very ahead on Jin. I think he was 3-0,
Yeah.
and there's not enough peel for that Jin. Wukong was just going to get to him, and so a little bit of a draft issue there, I think. I don't know. Maybe you need a Tom Kench Devour. I don't know. I don't remember the full draft, but I just remember thinking, even before it happened, I was watching the game with Brendan. I said to Brendan, I was like, if you think Bin's not going to be able to get to this Jin, you're wrong. Like, and clearly he did. And yeah, he was able to take over the game by himself on the Wukong into a Jace matchup, which I don't think is very good. He was able to hold his own top against 369.
Yeah. One thing on the side of top esports, one thing that I don't want to say I was disappointed by, but it definitely felt like kind of got lost was like Knight's play just in general. It kind of seemed that when top esports was winning, it was, in group stage off the back of Jackie Love and Jackie Love and Uyanja and just their landing phase plus Karsa. And in their quarterfinal series against Fnatic, it was heavily around 369 and Karsa. And I think Knight actually had a pretty good series for the most part. And he was,
Mm-hmm.
to me, he was the player that needed to play very well for TES to win this series. But it kind of just seemed like in this series, everything started crumbling around him with Jackie Love, limit testing a little bit, although he did have some good moments. But specifically with 369 and Karsa, like just Knight was just really not able to do much in this series. And I think it was just a bit disappointing, like just looking back at his overall Worlds performance. Not that he played bad by any means, but
No, of course not.
he was just
Yeah.
not involved at all.
No,
That's what it felt
I
like.
have I actually put that in my notes as well. It's the same thing. It wasn't that he was bad, but the hype that was coming around Knight coming into this into Worlds was that he was going to be the best player in the tournament. And I don't think we were able to see that. Even though he had good performances, I'm positive he wasn't the best player in the tournament. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I completely understand what you're saying. It's not that he was bad; it's that he wasn't as effective as we thought he might be, and I don't think that could all be pinned on him because they were struggles in other lanes. But yeah, a little disappointing because well, we wanted to see the Knight that was the MVP and all this stuff. So, but yeah, we didn't necessarily get it. However, on the other side, Angel had a really good series, and his Akali was nuts, man.
Yeah.
The one play where he one shots Jackie Love on Ash was really crazy to me because okay, sure, Akali's fed, right? And we've seen fed Akalis do that kind of thing. But he is kind of isolated, like Akali's by himself. Jackie Love takes a step forward to auto him a few times. He is standing right next to Tom Kench. And Angel says, I don't care. And he just all ins him and one shots him before the Tom Kench can even devour him. He's standing side by side.
Yeah.
That to me was such a ballsy play because if you do not one shot him, or if that Tom Kench has the reaction time that's just a little bit quicker, that play goes south. But he still had the balls to pull off that play and just absolutely destroy Jackie Love. And I was like, wow, that was nuts. I couldn't believe it, and I just thought that that was a play that needed to be highlighted.
Yeah. It's hard. I just think in terms of like for top esports, like it just seemed that like they couldn't get into a scenario where just every player was playing at their peak at the same time. I think when you're at the World Championship, yes, part of it is that you need to be a very good team, but it also is just like you need to be playing well at the time. And it kind of just felt like top esports, they could all with their play, they could never get on that same level where everybody was playing at their peak performances. Like where if you look at Suning,
Yeah.
like everyone on Suning is playing well. Like yes, Huang Feng and Sword Art, they didn't have like as hard of a pop off as they have been in the past, but they're all playing well, and it's really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
It's
I
just
agree.
it's really hard to stop a team that is playing when all their players are playing well and they're playing at their peak. Like you just look at previous worlds and worlds tournaments like IG. Like sure, IG wasn't necessarily the best team coming into the tournament, but all their players were just playing as well as they possibly could and were just hard outplaying everybody. And I think we're kind of seeing a little bit of that with Suning. I've kind of mentioned it a little bit before, but they're on that similar path that IG did in 2018. And to be honest, have had like a harder road to the finals, but they're playing just as well.
Yeah, and I think the point that you're making is good. I think basically the point that you're making is that everyone on that team can be a threat.
Yeah.
And that's something that's scary, especially Ben, man. That guy's nuts. Ben on the Jacks too. He was so far ahead, just stomping the Renekton, right? And
Uh-huh.
that was because of the advantages that SOFM was able to get in the jungle with the Shen pick. And well, yeah, he honestly kind of won that lane for Bin. But I mean, once you get Bin some advantage on the Jacks, like you're not going to lose that game ever. And so, yeah, it was really good series out of Suning, and I think that I am confident with watching Suning and Damwon now. I am completely confident that we do have the best two teams in the tournament at finals.
Yep,
Which
I agree.
is we talked about how last week we talked about how there's been some people that aren't too happy with the world's format, but as long as the top two teams are in the finals, that's what you want, and at least we got that this year. So there's that. Um, Anything else before we move on? We want to give out some awards.
Sure.
Let's give out some awards. Who do you got popping off this week?
I know I don't want to say I talk shit about him, but I definitely knocked his pick in game 2 of the G2 series, but I'm going to give it to Nuguri. Um Despite being put in a bad situation with the drafts and like the way that the game played out, even in that game 2, Nuguri was still able to do as much as he possibly could in trying to push the boundaries of his champion. He even got a lead in the early game. But in all the other games, he was just simply outclassing Wonder. I loved the Lulu pick into the Scion that they had in game 3. Thought that was a really, really good pick and a really good counter that, all things considered, nobody else can really play at the World Championship. Like in a world where let's say top esports went on to the finals, Scion was like the pick that 369 really utilized in that best of 5 series against Fnatic. Like Nuguri would have had an easy answer to that champion, which they probably would have rarely seen in scrims, let alone played against it, because this Lulu top is such a new pick. But I think he just showed his stuff in that series, and I'm really glad that we're seeing a way better version of Damwon at the international level than we saw last year when they were still like a rookie team.
Yeah, we've seen Bin look good all worlds long, but he's gonna have his work cut out for him going up against Nuguri. So definitely nice to see Nuguri popping off. I think that's 2 or 3 weeks in a row now that one of us has had Nuguri popping off and for our awards. For me, I went with SOFM. When you have a jungle that is pretty much winning the lanes for the laners, I think that that's deserving of some shout out. And so SOFM, specifically on the Shen, was just kind of insane. He completely shut down Karsa in the game. I think Karsa was on the Lee Sin, and he basically just won the lane for Jack's top and was able to win that game all by himself, playing a non-conventional jungle pick. I mean, we have seen the Shen jungle, but it's not an incredibly popular pick. And yeah, he was able to make it more than work. And so for me, I had to give it to SOFM, and I'm really excited to see him in finals as well. Bean Soup, who disappointed you, or what disappointed you? What give me some Bean Soup award.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was just talking about it, but I'm giving it to Knight, but like not really. Like kind of like I said, not that he was playing bad. It just felt like he just couldn't really do much, and everything was sort of, nothing really seemed to work out in his favor in terms of the way that the games went on and the way that his team was performing. So I'm giving Knight the bean soup, but not that his play was bad, just kind of the way that everything went.
I
I don't
mean, the
know.
Bean Soup award is about disappointment. It doesn't have to be giving it to him, and it could be about him. It's like there's a difference,
Yeah.
because it sounds to me like your award is actually to top esports for not being able to
I
play
guess,
properly
yeah.
so that Knight can shine. That's the way
That's
that
a
I'm
better way to
looking
say
at
it, I
it.
guess.
Yeah, that's the way it seems to me, and I totally get where you're coming from, because I just said myself, like, it was disappointing that we didn't get to see the Knight that was so hyped coming into this tournament. Even
Yeah.
though he played well, that's not the number one player in the world that we got to see. And
Mhm.
so it is disappointing. And yeah, it's not giving it to him; it's giving it to the team for not being able to make those advantages, or get the top level play that we can expect out of Knight. For me, I actually just went with G2. I had to give it to G2. I think that 19-minute game is not the way you want to let go of a series. I think that that was a disappointing game.
Mhm.
Even though I thought it was crazy and kind of funny, like wow, a 19-minute game they got absolutely stomped. It wasn't a fun game to watch, and that game was disappointing. I wanted to see a series, and I didn't get to see a series, so I just gave it to G2 for that. Uh, not really much more to say. That was not that great of a series, and I'm really hoping that even though I still enjoyed the series, I'm hoping and expecting finals to be a lot more exciting. So G2 Bean Soup for me, a little disappointing.
Yeah, my close second for Bean Soup was gonna be Mickey X from G2, and I guess
Okay,
again maybe
I
it
had
may.
Nuguri's Fiora as my
Oh
backup.
yeah, I mean maybe it's not like that Mickey played super bad. It was just I guess it's more that like Beryl just completely dominated him, and I guess I was expecting it to be a little bit closer. Because I myself personally I had G2's bot lane like favored over Damon's bot lane, and no, that was not the case.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not. Okay, let's get into World's Finals preview. We finally have World's Finals. Uh I can't believe how fast it's come, but this series I'm so excited for. I know that Damwon is heavily favored. I know. I still think people need to give more credit to Suning. They've
Hmm.
been continuously underrated in this tournament. And I think that this team is hands down the second best team. I don't think it's close. Um, I don't think there's any team that comes close to contesting Suning for that second spot. So obviously, I'm clearly giving the advantage to Damwon. I did it lane by lane. I like to do it this way. I put Nuguri and Bin as even just because Bin has been so good. If you would have asked me coming into the tournament, I obviously would have given it to Nuguri the advantage, but I actually went even there. I also went even in the jungle. Canyon and SOFM have both been so good, and they put so much pressure on the enemy team. SOFM is a little bit more about pressure though, and Canyon's more about setting up objectives. However, they're still both able to have such an impact for their team that like I don't think I can give the edge either way. All the other lanes, I gave the advantage to Damwon though. I think Showmaker is better than Angel. I think Ghost is better than Huan Feng, and I think Beryl is much better than Sword Art. And it's not that Sword Art is bad. I just think Beryl has been a monster. His Leona is everywhere, man. It's everywhere. He shows up all over the place, and has such a heavy impact on the game, and he's really oppressive. That and the Pantheon as well. And I think a lot of this series is going to depend on the Leona and Pantheon. I think that one of them if you're Suning, you need to I think you need to ban the Pantheon and pick the Leona. Sword Art's been good on the Leona. He's had a good Leona play, and I think that so has Beryl, and you need to take that away from him. So if this series is going to be close, I think that it will need to be because Leona is taken away from Beryl and Pantheon is also taken away.
Yeah, another pick that I think will be really impactful in this series, specifically on the Damwon side, and I guess this is something that Suning needs to do, just like for them to win, is get Showmaker off Twisted Fate. I think if
Yeah.
I think if Damwon gets Twisted Fate, it's like almost GG right there. Like unless the rest of the draft is so bad, but I think if Damwon gets Twisted Fate in almost any scenario, they probably win the game.
It's honestly just a good ban because they've
Yeah.
shown that they can play with it and against it.
Yeah.
They had no fear in leaving open the TF playing against G2, and G2 was so good with Twisted Fate. And they
Yeah.
were just like, we don't care. We're gonna leave it open. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't, but I do think the other position to attack is support. I don't think you're going to be able to ban out Canyon or Nuguri. Canyon he's looked almost flawless on like every jungler, whether it's Nidalee, whether it's Kindred,
here's what I'll
whether
say
it's
though. He's
Graves.
played so many Graves games though.
I
He's got
know,
like nine. I don't remember. He's got like 9 Graves games, like
but
a bunch of Graves at Worlds. I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, no,
Most
I
of his
get
games
you.
have been on Graves, so there's that. But yeah, I think you're right in saying that. Like, if you ban out the Graves, he's gonna perform on whatever's left.
Yeah,
You know,
I guess the only thing we haven't seen out of him is I don't think he's played a Lilia game. I mean, maybe he has,
I
but
don't think so.
I don't think he's played a Lilia game. Um,
Both of these junglers haven't really had that much priority on Lilia. I thought coming into
SOFM's
this
had a couple
tournament that
games, but
I thought we were going to see SOFM on Lilia a lot more, but we didn't really see that. I think he played one at the start of Worlds. I thought I looked this
all
up
I'm
earlier. I
saying is
don't have it.
he's playing J4, so let's go.
Yeah, I need to give him credit because I do not think Jarvan is a good champion right now. I
And
really don't. But he makes it work, man. He makes it work. He's he's so oppressive and he's got so much pressure early. Uh, this guy's just so in your face. I love SOFM. I love watching him play. And yeah, if you can make Jarvan work, you can make anything work right now. One other thing I will say though is that Suning has played a lot with Galio, but they haven't played the Wombo comps. And that's something that I think that they will need to do if they want to win this series. I think that if you can play the Galio, play it with a Camille, play it with the Jarvan. I mean, I think Jarvan's one of the lesser of the two because you can flash out of Jarvan Ultimate. You can't flash out of Camille Ultimate. But regardless, it's still a really good Wombo tool. And like I said before, the Leona is a really good pick with Sword Art. It's also a really good pick with Galio. So I think that you could continue to play Galio, which they have shown a few times. You want to get that and use the Wombo and make some plays like that because I don't see how else you're going to beat Damwon. I don't think you're going to be able to pull them across the map. I think that you need to have a nice Wombo and smash them.
One thing that I do think is interesting that in the past can be a problem for teams that are so dominant is, how much practice does Damwon have with like playing from behind? Because they've just straight up minus their one JDG game, they've just smashed everybody at this entire tournament. And again, G2, yes, they won that one game against Damwon, but I'm kind of ignoring that. But minus the one game against JDG, like they've just smashed everybody from like while ahead, and presumably that's also true in scrims. So who knows? Like maybe they don't have a ton of practice playing from behind, and maybe Suning is able to sort of, if Suning can get the lead in this early game and kind of play their game, what they've been used to, and Damwon's sort of forced to play on the back foot. Who knows?
Okay, so your logic then, your logic, if I'm getting this right, and I think I am, your logic is basically saying play for early game, try to get early advantages, and put Damwon in a situation that they haven't been in
pretty much
in forever.
Because I don't think you're gonna out team fight Damwon. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Honestly, I agree. I really do agree. I think they need to play to their side lanes. Even though I think Nuguri is great, I think so has Bin. And maybe you can get Nuguri in that situation where he's 0-7 on Fiora again. I don't see it happening, but it is possible. And I think that you need to trade. I don't think you need to fight for objectives. I think you need to trade objectives. I think that Suning should be the ones trying to play around Herald and play topside, and you need to hope that your bot lane can survive, which is not something they were able to do in the last series. But that's where I think you need to go with it, because I think Bin needs to face roll some kids, and I think that's your win condition. If you fight over dragons, I think you'll have a real hard time with how good Canyon is, and just Damwon is altogether at setting up objectives. I think you'll lose fights there, and so I think you want to trade and try to just smash one side of the map and play through that win condition.
Yeah, I do think Suning has a chance. They have a decent chance, but it will be difficult to, I think, topple this Damwon team if you are not ahead early game. It's if you're getting past like the 15-20 minute stage and you don't have like at least, I think, even like a 2 to 3k gold lead and like Drake advantage, like Damwon will just be able to stall out this game. I don't see like
give me some predictions. Are we good for predictions?
Yeah, I'll give it 3-1 to Damwon, but I do think this series does have the potential to be very close. And the way that Suning has been playing, if they continue on this form and all their players are firing on all cylinders, we could smell an upset here. But it will be hard to take down this Damwon team, and I think that's what makes this final so interesting. Is that like, if any team is going to topple Damwon at this tournament, it will be Suning, just because of how well they are playing, and they do stack up decently individually.
Just from what we've seen, like obviously it has to be because they're the only teams left, but regardless of that, like what we've seen, it's the only team that has looked good enough to beat Damwon, and so anyways, I actually have the prediction. I got 3-2 Damwon. This is a very optimistic prediction. I do need to put that out there. I'm predicting a little bit more with my heart than my brain here. I just think I think that Suning is still being underrated. I do think that Damwon is hands down the better team. When I say 3-2, I need to also say that there is no way, in my mind, there's no world where Suning wins 3-0 or 3-1. The only world that I could see Suning winning is 3-2, whereas I can see Damwon 3-0. I can see Damwon 3-1 or 3-2.
Yeah.
That's like the range of possibilities that seem realistic. I don't think there's ever a world where Suning runs away with it, but I do think there is a world where Damwon does. It's more of a 70-30 or maybe a 60-40 in that range for this series. But yeah, I think Damwon is obviously the favorites to win the World Championship. I know that's who I had in my pick'ems, and I'm sticking with that. I'm so excited for Worlds though, for World Finals, which I don't know if I've been this excited in a long time. Maybe it's because I've been paying attention way more this year than past years, but yeah, I think it'll be a great series regardless.
Yeah, I'm still trying to like decide whether or not I'm gonna like bite the bullet and stay up, or
Yeah,
like just watch
my
it in the
sleep
morning.
schedule is a freaking mess, man. I don't even know what the hell to do. I don't know. I'm same. I don't know what's gonna go on there, but I promise you I won't be missing it.
Hmm.
Anything else before we move on to quick news?
I think that is it for me, at
All
least.
right. I think there was a fair bit of stuff to throw out in quick news. Was there not? What do you want to? I'll let you take the reins on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, jeez, I lost it here. Oh no, no. Okay, the first one is the LCK. It has been announced for a while now that they are going to be switching to franchising format, and that all 10 franchised LCK teams have now been confirmed. However, I'm failing to find the link
I
to
got it.
it.
I got the list.
Okay, you rattle it off, thanks. I can't find it.
So the teams, so yeah, the LCK is franchising, and they have their 10 teams. Uh, they have Sandbox Gaming, A Freak of Freaks, Damwon Gaming, KT Rollster, Team Dynamics, Han One Life Esports, DRX, Gen G Esports, T1, and the new one is High Fresh Blade. That is the new org, and the team that is being eliminated is, I can't pronounce it, but I'm gonna try. It is Solha One Prince.
Oh Jesus Christ! Is the former APK Prince Challenger team that got promoted, I think, a year ago? But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's they were pretty
some people were
irrelevant.
pretty disappointed that Jin Air did not get in.
Yeah,
Rip Jin
sad
Air.
plane. Insert sad plane.
Yeah, so I mean, Jin Air has kind of been a joke of the league for a while. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I mean, they don't
They
really
had
have any
Teddy.
good
They
history.
had they had Teddy
Yeah,
at one point.
yeah, and then T1 was like yoink, and then well, all hope was lost after that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that LCK's franchising. I'm interested to see what changes that makes for their league, and I do hope to follow the LCK and LPL more as the years go on. So I'm interested by this. I think it's cool. I'm not super disappointed by any teams making it or not making it. I guess it just sucks a little bit that Jin Air's not there, but I mean,
Sad
such
plane.
such is life. Yeah, exactly. What else we got?
Um, there was a bit more news that came out regarding the whole NA solo queue in-house sort of conversations. Basically, the gist of it is finding a suitable replacement for the lackluster NA solo queue. So the person who actually created it, Golden Guardians Inero, I think he did a twit longer about it, and then also recently just did an interview with Travis Gafford where he was sort of going a little bit more in depth about it. But just to give people the general idea of what happened, was that I believe this was back at the start of season 9, maybe it was season 10, but I think the original idea started towards, sorry, not start of season 9, end of season 9, start of season 10,
Right. Yep.
was to get, as opposed to high rank NA players, instead of playing solo queue, they all sort of join a Discord server where they run in houses where it's a bit more exclusive in terms of they wanted only LCS Academy and potentially some top level NA Challenger players to play in some sort of scrim style solo queue games. Obviously it doesn't really mean anything and there's no like team relations to it, but it's just a way to get better practice. And he was giving us a bit of an update about how everything went along and kind of the excuses that are being brought up in terms of the community with why they failed or why people didn't join. But pretty much what he said was that the system has been this system has been in place for about a year now. It slowly started to die out in terms of its popularity, in terms of the player base and what teams are involved in it, and that a lot of teams are actually kind of like making excuses
Hmm.
and not using this as a possible solution while continuing to complain about the poor solo queue and how changes need to be made, while Anero's been sitting over here with this great solution for about a year now, but players and teams are actively avoiding it because they don't want to play with certain players, or they feel that it's too much effort to play in these sort of scrim mentality games right after playing a full day of scrims. It's just a bunch of bullshit to say
It's
that
not
NA
totally
players
clear
don't
what it
want to
is, right?
play. Like the gist that I'm
Yeah.
getting from it is that like a certain percentage of the North American LCS player base, they don't care. They simply they don't care for it. They'd rather just chill and play solo queue and stream than to be getting this good reliable practice. And it's a bit sad to see, considering the result of North America overall. I'm not personally knocking North America international performance, because I think it was actually decent, despite all the talk being this year, specifically because TSM went 0-6. But it's just there's just a bunch of bullshit, constantly from all the players complaining about solo queue and saying that there's no viable solutions, when this solution has been in place. And from what Anero is saying, that teams and players are just making excuses why it doesn't work.
Yeah, so there's some players saying like, "Oh, this isn't good and that isn't good," but where Anero's frustrations came from were that he made the effort to rectify all the issues that players were or that people were having with it. And he said, "Oh, if this is a problem, then maybe we'll do this to fix that." And the thing is like his point is, look, I made all these changes that people wanted. People just didn't want to play in it. So stop pretending like there's all these issues with it. Whereas like all the issues were always being taken care of, and people are just making up things that were problems with it, and that's where his frustrations are. And we will put a link in the description because Travis did an interview with him, just to get his side of things, and he basically just says that like people were not interacting enough with the Discord channel that they had to be able to set themselves up, and that it basically does come down to players just not wanting to. That's the truth. It's not that there was a bunch of issues with it, it's that people just didn't want to use it. And so I completely understand his frustrations. And as a fan, it frustrates me too, because there's so many issues that North America has. We see this all the time. We talk about it every year, every year, every year. And someone finally goes out of their way to fix one of the big issues that North America is facing, and people don't utilize the solution to fix those problems. So the point, I think Travis made this point in his interview, is like, well, maybe there is some truth behind the players are just lazy, because that's kind of the feeling that you get from hearing all this. It's just really frustrating. But yeah, definitely an interesting video, and we'll put the link in the description for that one as well. Definitely something you
Mm-hmm.
guys should check out. What else?
Um, I mentioned this previously, but I have it listed down here. Fnatic is most likely going to be replacing Nemesis, but we talked about that a little bit in our when we were talking about mid laners in terms of the NA rumors. Lastly, the only other thing that we have is the Honda Scouting Grounds dates were announced, plus some format changes. I haven't actually looked at this, so I'm going to pass it off to you, because I don't know anything
Basically,
about
so
this.
yeah, the only thing that they really announced are just the dates and like the draft order. So it looks like they are going to have a draft again this year, and so the draft is just goes in order of how the teams performed in summer. So like TSM, because they won the split, they get the last pick, they get 10th pick, and so the picks in order from 10 to 1 are 10 is TSM, 9 FlyQuest, then TL, Cloud9, Golden Guardians, Evil Genius, 100 Thieves, Dignitas, Counterlogic Gaming, and Immortals. Immortals have the first overall pick, and the dates are also in here somewhere. Uh, da, da, da. It kicks off Monday, November 9th, and the main event that's going to be broadcasted will be on Saturday, November 14th. Also, something we'll have the link for you guys in the description. Not much news other than that, but just to say that they are doing scouting grounds this year. They got the dates decided, and they got the draft that's going to follow probably right after. It's all in there. It's all in the information. We'll make sure to have that for you guys. One other thing I wanted to talk about though is that they announced, maybe isn't the right word. They revealed, actually. They revealed a little teaser that Elder Dragon is going to make another appearance at World's Finals this year. The reason I thought this was relevant and worth bringing up is that it just shows they do have something planned for World's Finals, as far as like a little show. I think that's what they're trying to tell us here. And so I guess my point to listeners is that I do think it is worth trying to watch the pregame or the pregame show, whatever you want to call it, this time around. Whatever they have planned, I think it will be something that's worth watching. We remember seeing Elder Dragon show up couple of years ago in the arena, and they always have something cool. So I think that despite this year being the quarantine year, I don't think it's much different, and I think that you should want to tune in before the games start just to see what they have planned, because I'm sure that they want to do some fun stuff. So there's that. And, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, with the whole COVID-19 situation, kind of put the big plans on Worlds for Riot's 10-year anniversary on hold. And as we all know, Worlds will be happening again in China next year. So hopefully all the big, extravagant things will happen then.
Yeah. So that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much to everyone that listened live. Thank you guys for listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all of you guys. And I just want to give another shout out to my boy JNT here, because for those that don't know, JNT is the one that's always uploading the VODs and stuff like that. And I don't think I showed him out enough for that stuff. He is also the one that not only is he uploading the VODs, he is the one that's doing the timestamps on the videos as well. So just a shout out JNT, and I wanted to thank you. And I just think people need to know that you are the one that is leading the stream and all that stuff. And so this show
Hog
doesn't
you.
happen without him. So yeah, just a shout out to you, my boy. And also, guys, feel free to share our content. We work really hard on this stuff, and we try to make this show as the best as possible for you guys. So if you guys do want to share this in Discords and stuff like that, it's much appreciated for us. We're going to continue to try to get better and make this as entertaining as possible for you guys. And we do appreciate all the help of spreading the word about this podcast. Yeah, we're going to keep doing our best and keep trying to make it as best as possible for you guys. As always, we always say follow us on Twitter. It is on the screen if you're watching. If you're listening, it's at Toominator _ TOOMINATOR _ and at BlueJay _ GG. Give us a follow on there. Thank you guys so much, and feel free to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. That just helps us out a lot, of course, and so we much appreciate that. Anything else that you want to shout out, J&T, before we let go?
Yeah, it's just one click. Just click the left click on the button.
Yeah, give us a click and hit that bell and all that crap that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys, for listening. This has been episode 21 of the Clown Fiesta podcast.